The best advice I ever got about buying a boat was to get a survey and sea trial before making your purchase. In this way, you'll get the full story of what's going on with the boat. But it won't exactly give you the full story. Having gone through several surveys myself, and after talking to a lot of cruisers, I've come up with a list of 5 things that you're going to want to check, or at least talk to your surveyor about, because they probably won't get checked. The windlass. Most surveyors are going to disagree, and they're going to say, yes, we do check the windlass, which is true, to a point. The reality of this is when they check your windlass, they're going to undo the clutch, they're going to hit the button, and they're going to make sure that it works. Unfortunately, this is going to check the windlass not under load. The first time that I tried to retrieve the anchor from the bottom, I started snapping fuses. After talking to a few places, the consensus is either the motor is wore out and needs to be replaced, or the windlass is just the wrong size. The problem is, when you actually put the anchor in the ground and have to wheel it up from the bottom of the ocean, that's when you're going to figure out whether or not the windlass actually works. So what would I do different? I would talk to the surveyor and see if there's a place where you can drop and weigh anchor. Because if you don't, you're never going to know until the first time you do it. In this way, you're actually going to get to put the windlass through an operational test under the loads that it will encounter while it's actually in use. Water leaks. Again, surveyors are going to heavily disagree. They're going to tell you that they do look for water leaks in all the regular spots, that they're going to check the windows, they're going to check the mast, they're going to check everything to see whether or not there is any evidence of leaking. The problem with this is, unless you live in a place where it rains all the time, the likelihood is the boat owner can keep up on wiping down the areas and erasing most signs of any leaks. Some surveyors will even take a hose and spray down the boat and then go inside and check for leaks. Though this helps, it's actually quite inadequate, because a hose is never going to duplicate a rainstorm. The boat that I'm currently on actually didn't have any signs of leakage. I'd asked about spraying it down with a hose, however the surveyor said it had rained only 2 days ago, and any signs of leak would probably show up. Looking back, I really should have insisted on having him spray it down with a hose, because as I found out in the first rainstorm, well, more rain equals more leaks. Almost every window in the boat leaked. Here's a bonus tip. You're paying for the surveyor. Make him survey the boat the way you want. In addition to the windows, you need to check everything, including the stanchions, the tow rails, pretty much any deck hardware that there's a bolt into the deck, because those are all areas where the bonding can start leaking. If you have a keel step mast, another thing that you need to check is whether or not the mast actually drains. I have 2 masts because it's a catch rig. And my aft mast with mizzen mast, it actually doesn't drain, so the water backs up and then leaks into the rear berth. It can cause a mess, especially during hard rains. And it actually took quite a bit of rain before I even noticed this issue. So how do we prevent this? Well, I know I said that a hose was inadequate. However, don't be afraid to ask your surveyor or even do it yourself, but don't be afraid to get wet. Take the hose, get it really close to all the seals, all the window seals, all the stanchions, all the chain plates, any deck hardware that goes through the deck. Spray it down, and spray it down good and with as much pressure as you can get, because only then are you going to have a chance of finding the leaks that you'll find during your first hard rainstorm. Also, don't forget to check anywhere that water can go. One of my windows actually leaks, however it leaks into the core and comes out in a crack in a closet below. Make sure you open up everywhere and check if water is getting in. Pests. Alright, if you watched any of my videos, you know this is a sore subject for me. Boats can be homes for humans, so they can obviously be home for pests as well. Make sure you're asking questions about pests, whether it be bugs or rodents, or anything that can live on a boat. The most likely issue is going to be rodents or bugs. I didn't have any mice, at least that I know of. However, I did have a massive termite infestation. After having it inspected by a couple termite inspectors, they came to the consensus that more than likely the colony had been there 5 to 6 years. To this day, I don't know how it wasn't caught during the inspection. It should have, either by me or by the surveyor. However, I will say this. There was none of the telltale poop signs. There was none of the things like that. But there were slight signs. So, what you need to do to avoid this and avoid making the mistake that I made, look around. Look at every door jamb. Look in every port cover. Basically, look at any piece of wood. And if you see little holes in it or you see any damage to it, insist that the owner prove that the issue was taken care of, whether it's receipts or whatever. If he can't provide that proof, just assume the bugs are still there. Tank capacities. When you're looking at a boat, somewhere in the description, there's going to be the tank capacities. When you get your survey back, it's likely going to say the exact same thing, which may not be accurate. The reason for this could be one of two things. Either the surveyor took whatever was in the listing and that's what he put on for the tank capacities, or he went to a website like sailboatdata.com, looked it up, and put those numbers in there. Sometimes even the owner got the numbers from the same place. As I said, this might not be accurate. According to the survey that I got, the boat that I'm in right now carries 135 gallons of fuel. That is true, but the boat also has 2 tanks, and this one only has 1, and it does not carry 135 gallons of fuel. So yes, my tank capacity, even though the survey and the listing said 135 gallons of fuel, is only 67. The water tanks are also new on this boat. I'm hoping that when the previous owner swapped out the water tanks, that he updated the listing for the capacity of the water that's on it now. The other tank, the holding tank, this boat was listed as only having 1. Well, after digging around and following some hoses, I've found out it has 2. I'm not sure how big the second one is. I guess I'll have to measure it to find out. So how do you avoid this problem with your survey? The first thing you do is do your research in advance. Figure out how many tanks it's supposed to have, what the capacity of those tanks are, write them down. So when you do your survey, you know what to look for. The second thing is to make sure that you're doing a little bit of research and write down some formulas to measure and figure out volumes of tanks by measurement. It's actually quite simple to do with a calculator and mathematics, and if you have a weird shaped tank, you can probably get a good estimate as to about how much it is. By knowing this information, at least you're going to know approximately whether or not the actual data that you're being presented is accurate. Engine hours. Yes, every surveyor and every survey and every listing is going to show you the engine hours. The problem with this is it's not real hard to change out the hour gauge. And then the engine's new again, right? Unfortunately, I don't know if there's a way for the surveyor to verify the engine hours. However, help him do a good job by asking a lot of questions. A little bit of looking and a lot of questions can go a long way. Ask if the engine's been rebuilt. Ask if you can see the service records. Take a look to see what the condition of the engine is. Does the condition of the engine look like it's about the same as the hours? I mean, if you have an engine that says it's 136 hours, but it has rust all over it, well, the likelihood is it doesn't have 136 hours on it, or it was underwater. Either one of those should cause you some fright. Like I said, I don't know if there's a real fix for this because you can't verify hours. However, as I said, a little bit of observation and some questions can go a long way. The boat that I own listed it at 500 hours. When we first started it up, it smoked a little bit, which could be normal for a 1974 era engine, rebuilt or not. After it warmed up, the smoke went away, so I really didn't think about it. As I run the engine, every once in a while I have to top off the engine oil, so I know it is burning oil. I'm not sure if the engine was rebuilt. It looks like it was rebuilt. However, I didn't have any maintenance records to go along with that. I'll probably never really know the engine hours until I actually change the engine myself. So here's a bonus tip. And I know your surveyor will not do this, and neither will your broker. But if you're interested in a boat, spend a day and walk around the docks. Talk to other sailors. Ask them about the boat. Sailors are generally a tight-knit community, so therefore they know a lot of the other sailors. They know a lot of history on the boats. People that have been around for a while can probably tell you who the previous owner was and the owner before that. I run into people all the time who will tell me stories about the person I bought it from, tell me stories about the owner that he had bought it from. So I would highly recommend at least taking an opportunity to walk around the docks and ask people if they know anything about the boats you're interested in. I hope this video helps you with the purchase of your boat and not to run into some of the issues that I've ran into after purchasing mine.